Okay, yeah. So this is the very first time that I've had the opportunity to join the Amaravati Lay Buddhist Association group. And, it's nice to see so many people um, here. And then I also noticed there's 62 people on Zoom. So it's there's a interest and a dedication uh, here at Amaravati that is really worthy of supporting. And yeah, so as we started the day with meditation, I think one of the things that's important to be considering or reflecting on is um, the context that we meditate from or meditate with, because um, yeah, there's in the Noble Eightfold Path, there's right mindfulness, there's right concentration, and there's also wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration, wrong meditation. So it's important to be cultivating the discernment to be able to recognize what is a skillful framework for developing this this practice of the Dhamma, putting the Buddha's teachings into my life. And this is we're just 2 days since the full moon of July, and the full moon of July always commemorates the very first teaching of the Buddha. And he gave the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, rolling the wheel of the Dhamma, and that um, teaching that he gave to his first five disciples uh, was was and still is a framework for investigating the teachings, the practice, the training, and of course it's it is a uh, it is a teaching that is very well known. It's kind of a signature quality, but you can't wear it out, and you can't make it go old and, and useless. Well, you can. We can do all sorts of things, but that's if you use handling it rightly, approaching it rightly, it continues to just bring good results, and allows us to deepen our understanding and our experience of the Dhamma. So um, they and of course there's the famous description that is given by Sariputta of saying this is it's like the Four Noble Truths. The teaching on the Four Noble Truths is like the elephant's footprint thing. In the same way that all animals' footprints fit into would fit into the the imprint of an elephant. And if anybody's ever seen an elephant's footprint somewhere, you realize, well, that's big. That's it's, and of course, in the same way, this teaching of the Four Noble Truths is the teaching that encompasses all wholesome qualities and states and wholesome approaches to understanding truth. So it's not a small thing at all, and is important to always be reflecting and considering. So that these Four Noble Truths on, this is dukkha, and of course, dukkha has many, many translations. Whether it's suffering or dis-ease, stress, discontent, and many, many flavors or uh, nuances of, but it is fundamentally that which is unsatisfactory. It's not comfortable. This is not desirable. There's got to be a better way than this. And it's, and then of course, and that's part of um, the structure of the Four Noble Truths is there is this uh, uh, experience of the of dukkha. It is, and when the Buddha describes it, it's based in the relationship that we have to our body and mind. When we approach our body and mind with attachment, clinging, desire, unskillful desire, and then we suffer and we get stressed. And so that it is it's not necessarily, yes, there is all sorts of suffering out in the world, and some of it you can do something about, some of it you can't, but where you can observe it is in this body and mind, these five aggregates of clinging, of attachment, in what are called the upadana khandha. So just to recognize that it's not abstract. And that's one of the beautiful things about the Buddha's teaching, is that he is rarely indulging in abstraction or philosophizing. What he's doing is pointing out truth or pointing out the reality of things, and he's giving us the tools to work with it. And that's really important to approach it, because the tendency of I think particularly in the West, there's a tendency to go to abstraction and the theory of it. And suffering is not a theory. The Buddha is making it right. You pay attention to this, and but also to take it further. It's not just sort of wallow in suffering. It's to you realize the Buddha in his description of in that very first discourse. There is the say the truth that he's pointing to, but then within each truth is like a responsibility, a duty, an activity, a way of holding it or approaching it that we have to pay attention to if we're going to really be able to fully utilize it. So that suffering is to be dukkha. Sometimes we say dukkha is a better word to get a sense of the. Sometimes the Pali is much more nuanced, and it's helpful to recognize that some of the. This is a Amaravati Lay Buddhist Association, so that people are committed to the practice. And so sometimes, it's good to get some of the fundamental Pali terms down, not particularly in a scholarly way, but in a way that you realize, oh, there's some nuance to these terms. The So that dukkha is to be comprehended. Uh, to be comprehended, it's to be um, understood, it's to be known fully. So that is what we need to be turning our attention to. How do I know this? And we don't know something by being overwhelmed by it, um, or just reacting blindly to it. We have to have a perspective in order to understand and comprehend clearly. So then so that the second noble truth is the um, cause of dukkha, so that it has a cause, it has an origin. Um, there's a beginning point to this, uh, and and that is to be abandoned. So that understanding the cause, and of course the Buddha points to suffering in or to desire as the cause of dukkha. And but when he says desire, again, it's a technical term, tanha, and tanha is a form of desire that is always unskillful. It's desire that is entangled with greed, hatred, delusion. It's entangled with a lack of true knowing, true understanding, based in avijja, and so say, as opposed to, because sometimes I mean, there is that train of thought or or criticism of Buddhism. It's like, I mean, you can't have any desire. So what can you do? You can't do anything, um, because you have a desire. But um, there's a different word that is used for desire, and it's chanda. And that can be, it can be wholesome, it can be unwholesome, it can be neutral. It's just a desire as motivation, and that's in, in reality, like there's a discourse where Ananda is being questioned about the Buddha's teachings, and he's being criticized in terms of, this teaching. If desire is the cause of something, that means there is no end to it, because you're always going to have some kind of desire. And Ananda just sort of explains it in very mundane terms. And he says, no, I mean, it's you oftentimes desire leads to a uh, leads to the ending of that desire. And this is like, you they were in a park. Did you conceive a desire to come to this park? And yes, I had the desire. Did you have the desire to have a conversation with me? Yes, I had the desire to have a conversation with you. And now that you come to the park, you've had the conversation, that desire has been fulfilled, hasn't it? So, yes, yes. So, yeah, there's an ending. There is an ending of desire. So but that would be like chanda, and there is, I mean, a set of teachings that the Buddha gives in the 37 factors of awakening, the Boja, uh, what are they called again?
Bodhipakkhiyam.
Dhammas. Thank you. And and so the Bodhipakkhiyam Dhammas, Dhammas that lead to awakening, there's different sets of teachings. So one of those sets is the four bases of success, the four itipatthas. And the very first one is chanda, desire. If you're going to succeed in something, you've got to formulate a desire. And chanda, virya, jitta, vimamsa are the constituents of these four bases of spiritual success. And so chanda is desire, virya is the second one, effort, energy. And if you don't put forth some kind of effort or some kind of nothing happens. It's the and the Buddha actually describes his teaching. Teaching is a Theravada, is a Vada in the sense that Theravada, teaching of the elders. He said, my teaching is a virya Vada. It's a teaching on effort. Because you need to put forth effort to see what the results are. And of course, then you have to develop the clarity to see, well, what's worth cultivating, what's worth letting go. So chanda, virya, citta is literally mind, but it's sort of the application of mind, settling the mind, stilling the mind, training the mind. And vimamsa is another word for investigation, contemplation. It has a kind of connotation of reviewing, just in the within the calling. So it's that reflection, investigation, and then of course, if it's working properly as it should, that kind of reviewing or reflection would lead to more chanda, motivation, more ability to put forth effort. So it's a virtuous circle that helps to support the aspiration toward freedom from dukkha. So that their desire being tanha being the source of dukkha. And also that there is an ending, there is a cessation of this. It's sort of so like having, and at first you have to rely on some kind of conviction or faith that this has an end. This is. And then and that is, but that ending, what the Buddha says, the duty, the duty, responsibility to the cause of suffering is abandoning, letting it go, putting it down. And the duty or the responsibility that we have to the truth, noble truth of the ending of suffering is to be realized, to be experienced, and to be made real. And because at first you can only maybe intellectually conceive of it. Yeah, something has a beginning, it must have an end. The Buddha was teaching us, the great teachers have been teaching us, there must be an end. They keep saying it has. But it's still not fully realized. So we need to realize. And then the fourth noble truth is the path leading to the cessation of dukkha. This noble eightfold path of sila, samadhi, of virtue, of concentration, of wisdom, of discernment. So it's and that path is to be developed. It's to be brought into being. Doesn't again, it doesn't magically manifest because you've got a nice idea from time to time. It'd be nice to do something about it. You really have to do something about it. So and so it's to be cultivated, to be developed, put into practice. So these Four Noble Truths are, again, not just a theoretical structure, but they are a way of viewing and a way of putting forth effort to experiment and see what works, what doesn't work. So that these Four Noble Truths are, there are toolkit, and to be able to experiment and test it out, try it out, see what works, see how one can refine it, what one can do to work on it. But it is important that we view things through that lens of these Four Noble Truths, um, and and recognize that so often what we do view our experience through is the lens of our likes and our dislikes, and our fears or our worries, so that it's not a particularly reliable basis of viewing experience. Being able to encourage the mind to explore. I think it's also helpful to recognize that this teaching on the Four Noble Truths is, even though intellectually it's satisfying in its simplicity and directness, it does require a fundamental ease and stability and clarity of mind to penetrate it, to grasp it, and which doesn't mean you shy away from it, but it's also recognizing that even the Buddha in his teaching, with the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, he was teaching people he practiced and trained with and who had very refined states of meditation that they had developed, and he had confidence that they would understand it, and of course, even when he approached them, they were a bit wary of. And then as he taught it, then there was an increasing. Just one of them, Kondanya, understood, and then over the next few weeks or so, the Buddha kept teaching and explaining and giving encouragement until they were all stream enterers, understood, because that's actually a basic doorway into the first realization of the liberation of heart is these Four Noble Truths. But in general, if one sees um, the teachings of the Buddha and stepping back and over the collection of the canon, the Buddha says that there's a lot of preparation that you need to be willing to put in before those Four Noble Truths become manifest, and that in general, when the Buddha would teach, there was a what he called a gradual instruction that he would follow, uh, and and in its full form, probably in some cases it wasn't all of it, but at least you realize there's going to be a foundation to settle the mind and for the mind to really delight in. And I think that's it is important that the heart is really delighted in this truth, um, and that there's an ease of heart. So then the Buddha, that gradual instruction, anupupikata, was a beginning with generosity. You realize the fruits of generosity, um, fundamental generosity, kindness, giving, sharing. Um, I think everybody, you don't need to be a dyed-in-the-wool Buddhist to realize that giving is good and makes you happy, and so that again is laying a foundation, so that there's a certain delight and happiness in the mind. Because just because the Buddhist points to suffering or dukkha as a noble truth doesn't mean the path is one of suffering, and if I make myself miserable enough, I'll penetrate these truths. It's not how it works. One has to lay the foundation of fundamental goodness and a brightness of heart, so that there's ease and stability that's there. I mean, it's interesting, all like the path leading to the cessation of suffering, right view, uh, right intent, right speech, right action, right lively, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Each one of those factors is a source of happiness and well-being. It just is quite natural. So that's it's they bring about a clarity of heart. So the first being of the graduated discourse and graduated instruction, gradual instruction uh, is dana, and the second one is sila, uh, that sense of the I mentioned it this morning, but sila is being able to recognize that one has this commitment to non-harming, to integrity, and it really brightens the mind. The heart really lights up uh, with that recognition of that commitment. It also is um, just in terms of personally, uh, it's a source of well-being and happiness, but also sila in its application is there's a discourse where the Buddha talks about the great gifts, um, the five great gifts, and of course the five great gifts, the Mahadana, the five great gifts are refraining from taking life of any living creature, and not taking what is given, five precepts. And he said, because it is a gift of harmony, of compassion, of trust, it's this feeling of, yeah, of lack of fear. When you're around somebody who you feel has got real integrity, you don't have to fear them. You don't have to feel uncomfortable with them. That's an incredible gift. Um, that so that sila has it just has so many benefits. And the third one is in Pali it's Sangha. It is just for modern Western Buddhists sometimes, or people exploring Buddhism, sometimes it's a bit much to swallow, but it's this recognition of that there are heavenly results of action. That there is the and it does tie into the fruits of actions. There is uh, what one does has a result, and when one does that which is generous, kind, compassionate, it brings a good result, not just in this life, but in future lives. So there is a certain implicit uh, uh, turning to the sense of, say, a Buddhist cosmology of the, but it's just sort of recognizing that actions have results. Uh, and what kind of results because even if one doesn't believe, still you can recognize that heavenly states of mind are much nicer than miserable states of mind. And that's something that we're contributing to all the time, moment to moment, so that it's not such a leap of logic to extend it over lifetime. But at the very least, you realize, oh, yeah, heavenly states of mind are worthy of cultivation, and that so that the most common description of, say, the causes say, of heavenly states of mind: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity. These are divine states of being, and they really do provide a nourishment and a nutriment for well-being and stability, and that lays such a solid foundation for the uh, uh, growth in understanding the truth. Um, and then part of that next is looking at the benefits of good action, and seeing that there is many benefits to living skillfully, putting forth effort, not swirling around in confusion and the mind kind of obsessed with itself. Uh, that it's easy to get entangled, uh, be in my problems. It's very compelling, not so useful, but compelling. So, so as a laying a foundation of stability and clarity, and then the benefits of relinquishment, letting go of renunciation. And that is in the Pali is nekama, and nekama is a barami. So that sometimes that especially the English word renunciation. So it's like it feels like you're really going to miss out on something. And whereas say from the Buddhist framework, renunciation is a barami. It's like this really wholesome virtue that carries one over from confusion to clarity, um, uh, from defilement to purity, from samsara to freedom from samsara, from disentangling from the world and moving toward freedom. That is the function of barami, or the characteristic of barami. And so that nekamma is one of the 10 baramis. So that sense of being, delighting in relinquishment, delighting in letting go, um, rather than the problems that we entangle ourselves with clinging and detachment, because it gets heavy, and that willingness to let go, and certainly um, the Buddha's, in some discourses, the Buddha describes his path, or the essence of the teaching as, this is a path of letting go, of relinquishment. The and that it brings so many blessings. And Ajahn Chah was very similar. Just in his teachings and encouragements, he so often would, rather than what can I what do I need to do? Uh, so, what can you let go of? Pay attention to what you can let go of. And it's really an interesting exploration. Well, yeah, what can I relinquish? What can I let go of? What can I do to make things lighter and more spacious? Especially in meditation, so often um, you know, we, where our mind just gets cluttered, uh, and to be able to just let that go. It doesn't mean you have to, and certainly doesn't mean that you're running around trying to annihilate it, but it's just letting it go, releasing, relinquishing. Well, and that, and it's with that, say, foundation of a gradual instruction where the Buddha brightens people's minds with the benefits of the path, and the benefit of this approach, and experiential approach. Then he introduces the Four Noble Truths. So I think for ourselves, I think it's really helpful to, yes, you turn to the Four Noble Truths to investigate, but then, um, if it's always an analysis, uh, or it can get dry, uh, um, and if things get dry, then you lose your motivation. You lose your kind of, it ceases to be enjoyable, and Dhamma practice really should be enjoyable. It's like yes, there are difficult things that we have to look at and face, but it's also there's a sense of, okay, this is meaningful. There's something substantial going on here that I can really learn, penetrate, and it would make my life so much more or less complicated. So there is this sense of recognition of there's just so many benefits, and learning how to, uh, in the same way that um, like upadana, clinging. One of the images or the ways of translating, say, attachment, clinging is also, it's like nourishing. We get nourishment from, we think we get nourishment from say, anger or something. Really going to get that person, or worrying about something. Somehow it's I'm going to protect myself by worrying, and 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 uh, and you realize it gets you end up sort of drawing the wrong kind. It's not very nourishing. No, it's feeding on it, but it's not very nourishing. Whereas they say nourishing the heart with generosity, with virtue, with the entertaining the heavenly, uh, with the seeing the benefits, seeing the drawbacks, relinquishment, renunciation. Uh, then there is it's preparing the mind to be clear and steady. Because that, and then the meditation goes a whole lot smoother. Uh, and it is really interesting. Like one of the I was talking that like chanda, desire, is like one of the forms of desire. Dhamma chanda, desire for the Dhamma. Kusala chanda, desire for the wholesome and skillful. And there's discourses where the Buddha mentions these things, and there's starting. It's a series of like a causal process that is set in motion, um, so that that desire for the wholesome, um, desire for Dhamma, desire for delighting in the Dhamma. The kind of the sense of like even with dukkha as a cause, dukkha can result in two things. Dukkha can result in more dukkha, and that's not a surprise. Uh, but dukkha can be a source of a noble search, and that's seeking. And surely there must be a way out of this. And so that noble search is a and so there's several different sort of starting points, but then the Buddha goes into with that as a condition, and there's a rising of delight. That in Pali it's pamoja, it's a sense of delight, and with that sense of delight, the mind is begins to be energized, and then with that kind of delight, there's a rising of piti, of joy, exhilaration, uh, and the mind is brightened with that kind of piti uh, as a foundation, and there's a rising of pasati, which is tranquility. There's a relaxing. There's a ability to your shoulders go down a whole lot more. and and then with this that tranquility as a relaxing as a basis, there's a rising of sukha, pleasure, and happiness, really deep well-being. And then from that, with sukha, that pleasure, that happiness, it's a rising of samadhi. And in some of the discourse, I mean, there's many discourses where the Buddha goes through this as a causal process. In a few of the discourses, the Buddha actually stops and say after with the with happiness as a condition is arising of samadhi. Buddha actually stops and emphasizes the happy mind is easily concentrated. And so the happy mind easily settles. The happy mind easily enters the mind. And so that, of course, it's say right happiness with all these wholesome conditions. Um, and I think it's certainly the opposite of how I approach meditation for many years, because my kind of paradigm was, when I get my samadhi together, I'm going to be happy. But what the Buddha says is when you get your happiness together, then samadhi arises, and so that and then the Buddha continues the causal, the conditioning process of that with samadhi as the basis and its arising of knowledge and vision of the way things truly are. And then it's with that knowledge and vision of the way things truly are that there is a disenchantment, a dispassion arises. And it's with that there's release. So it's a we just want to get to the release bit, so that you're paying attention. So this teaching on the Four Noble Truths is giving us. It's not just an intellectual structure, but it's a structure that gives us many tools for investigation and cultivation. And so that as we practice, it's really important to realize, there is a big picture. So take an interest in the bigger picture, because especially when it's say a bigger picture that the Buddha himself lays out, it's going to be a really interesting picture. I say that's my bias. So it's just to take the time to use the teachings, use the structures, and then recognizing all the other teachings that the Buddha gives. They'll find their way back to those Four Noble Truths again, and so that it goes back and goes both ways. So I think that's enough food for thought, and I'll offer it for your reflection.